whatever he wants to do.
Probably machine down.
Review the minutes. Appeal hearing Homeland Tower, May 2nd, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye. Monthly Town Board meeting of May 3rd, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye. Annual MS4 Stormwater Report of May 3rd, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye. Weekly Town Board meeting of May 9th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye. Committee reports, Conservation Board.
Okay, the Conservation Board met on May 8th. Basically, they had a couple of actual smaller projects to deal with. 217 Lane Gate Road, which dealt with a 390-foot square deck. This was also, they discussed the associated plantings that are located along that area as well, but pretty much a minor improvement to the area and no impact really to the wetland. Surprise Lake Camp, this is a repeat item that has been on for a number of months. This is an amended site plan. It's to improve the vehicle, pedestrian safety, and stormwater improvements. Again, it was really just supplying some additional details that were required by the board. The 65 Steuben Road, which is in Continental Village, this was actually to determine whether they would be able to cancel the wetlands permit. In this particular case, they had applied prior, and the new septic system that was going to go in with the new house would have required a 15-foot backfill into the 100-foot buffer. With the new design that was approved by the Board of Health, they were able to stay out of that area, and so the Conservation Board agreed that they did not require it, so the permit was canceled. And also 16 Fox Hollow Road, they, again, really a minor addition to the buffer area of a gazebo. That was reviewed and approved by the board as well. Obviously, last month or two, we had the public hearing for the stormwater report. That was finalized and set in. That was for the period of March 2017 to March 2018, so that was accomplished. Regarding stormwater management, there's a discussion going forward to actually create a grid map of the town. This would identify by road, actually, or by grids, the actual waterways, the buffers, any steep slopes, and also to include any flood-prone areas. And those are obviously coming up with other boards as construction occurs along the river. We are also taking a look at water testing and be able to see where we could actually perform those tests. A riverkeeper approached me to provide us some details as to what's occurring between some adjacent upstate towns and whether or not we might be interested or not. And I told them they can obviously send that, and we'll review that as well. And our next meeting is June 12th.
Thanks, Mike. Recreation.
Unfortunately, I was unable to attend the Recreation Commission meeting last night because of a Little League game, but they did interview Judy Farrell, and we'll get to that appointment later.
All right, great. Thank you. Councilwoman Montgomery's not here, so we'll be going over the coalition that cares. Planning Board.
Planning Board. I attended the Planning Board meeting the other night on June 5th at the old VFW Hall. We had a pretty big agenda. The first thing on the agenda was return of vesicle of Martin McHugh, 200 Lake Surprise Road. That was unanimously passed. Under new business, Done Right Construction, Bob Ashley, 3 Ethan Drive, Garrison. The applicant is seeking approval to access the property with the intent to construct a single-family residence at the same location as the house that was demolished there a few years ago. He has the Putnam County Board of Health approval for the septic. This is being referred to the Continental Village Firehouse in the county planning. There's no site visit is not necessary. The planning board declared themselves as lead agency in unlisted action for the seeker, and they will prepare a negative declaration, secret deck, for the next meeting in July. Under new business again, J. Mark Jewelers, they live up on Route 9. They've been there since 1983. Jim Matero has been as a member of the community for many, many years, and that business has been around for quite some time. Anyway, he's seeking a little addition, only 240 square feet to the rear of the building, to expand his showroom. Basically the same thing that I said at the last one. There is no public hearing required, and most likely the planning board will get the paperwork ready for next month's approval. Next 2 weeks is the next planning board meeting. On June 21st, they should have all the paperwork ready to approve that little addition. He wants to get it done before the holidays start and complete it. Okay, under old business, as I'm reporting on for many years now, the Hudson Highland Reserve, Route 9, Horton Road. I indicated last month that the board voted 5-2 for a positive declaration. At this meeting, they just had to formally approve it with a resolution, and that's what they did. Originally, they thought they were going to have the planning scoping session at that meeting, but wasn't the case. They're having a special workshop on June 21st at 7 p.m. to start the scoping session for that project to move forward. Next on the agenda was James Copeland, 3052 Route 9. That's the old Stony Antique Store up on Route 9. He's basically just changing it from retail to office space. It's just considered a minor project. And again, they just refer to the North Highlands Firehouse, and the Conservation Board, and the public hearing is scheduled for July 19th. Garrison Properties Holding, Whipping Willow Pond Road, as I reported last month. The applicant is seeking a major site plan approval for construction of a single-family home, an accessory cottage, resurfacing, improving portions of the driveway, and installation of a new septic system. They already have the approval for the septic system, and they're going to also have approval to demolition 3 of the buildings there and rebuild all those 3 buildings as well. Again, this is a major project. There's also 2 conservation and easements on this property, but all this work is going to be outside of that area. A public hearing will be scheduled for July 17th. Alex Campbell, 4 Cliffside Court and 28 Upland Drive. I reported him as well last month. He did approach the firehouse, Continental Village Firehouse did visit the site, and they gave their recommendations. They need to improve the road quite a bit. A lot of potholes, widen the road in certain areas, widen the driveway. Also, they're looking for a turnaround area for the fire truck inside his property, and he said he's going to comply with all these improvements. We'll see what happens over the next month or so, how far he gets with this, but he's making a lot of progress from where he was 2 years ago on this. Chris Buck, 1657 Route 9, 9D. He's right now in the process of getting he did get all the site approval plans approved to begin with a barn. He wants to start with a barn because he's using his barn as a staging area for the rest of the construction that's going to be going on there for probably the next year or 2. So he has those approvals, and he's moving forward. Last on the agenda was Barbara Beck Eckerly, Lake Celeste Drive. The proposed construction of a single-family residence and a driveway with a detached garage. The applicant is seeking approval for access. The access into this driveway, into this road, is fairly narrow. There's some pretty wide stone walls on each side of it. So there's some concerns that they think they can just be able to take these walls down, reconstruct them, and make it the entranceway a little bit wider. But there's a little bit more to that than meets the eye. So they're going to have a public hearing scheduled for August 16th. The meeting was adjourned at 9:45. Again, the workshop is on June 21st at 7 p.m. And the regular meeting will be at 7:30. End of my report.
Thanks, Bob. You earned your keep on that one, huh? Zoning.
I attended the May 14th meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. There was one review of an application for completeness, Leonard Lindros, 593 Route 9D in Garrison. The applicant seeks a side yard setback for a 24 by 24 garage. The application was complete and referred to public hearing. There were 2 public hearings. Number 1 was Dan and Rebecca Ward, 69 Highview Terrace. They seek a variance for a 2,500 square foot garage. The public hearing was open and continued to the next meeting. Dan and Kevin Raymond, 2830 Hudson River Lane. They are seeking a multitude of variances for their 2 properties to build a new single-family complex of buildings. They want to merge the lot and build one single-family home, but it's several different buildings. That public hearing was also continued to the June 11th meeting of the ZBA. That's it.
Thanks, John. Highway.
I have the highway. Let's see. Philipstown Town Board members, Carl Fresend, the highway superintendent, work performed by the Philipstown Highway Department for the month of May. Extreme weather conditions continue to delay regular spring responsibilities on the roads. The tornado windstorm of May 8th downed wires and trees, which took precedence over any other jobs. The crews cleared storm damage, and due to the volume and size of some of the downed trees, this task required additional work hours. Other crews' activity included sweeping of roads through the mid-May, repair and cleaning of catch basins, filling potholes, and grading. With 60 miles of roadway, including almost 30 miles of dirt, we are doing our best to get all the roads back in shape. Suggested and regular speed limit signs have been purchased and placed on historic Old Albany Post Road. Additionally, guide rail reflectors have been strategically placed on East Mountain Road. All signs help serve as reminders to drivers to be cautious and slow down. The Highway Department received approximately 55 phone calls regarding road complaints and other road issues in the month of May. The Highway Department has spent roughly $6,200 in vehicle maintenance for the month of May. Carl Frazenda, Highway Superintendent.
Thank you. Building and Land Acquisition, Councilman Van Tassel and I met with Justin Caker of Highland Architecture, and we're finalizing the plans for this building. We're really, should be good, should be coming in next week, and we're going to go back out to bid for the window replacement. We have the windows, we're just going to rebid the actual installation of those windows. So you're going to see big changes to this building in the next 2 years, but starting with the first window replacement.
I'd like to thank Supervisor Shea for replacing the 2 coins on the corner of the building.
It's 3 coins.
3, sorry.
That's it.
I got you short a coin.
You just gotta give them 75 cents then.
Yeah, right. We're up to
They
75.
look great.
Thanks. Putnam County Legislature. Legislator, sorry. Really.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Barb.
Oh, last month or the month before, we talked about the vaping zoning change, that I gave you a copy of what we were thinking about doing. Since that time, I've had a meeting with the Director of Power Against Tobacco, Maureen Kenny, and she suggests that we add tobacco products in that zoning code. You know, it's proven that early exposure to nicotine has a detrimental impact on the teenage brain. The addiction rate for smoking is higher than the addiction rate for marijuana. So it wouldn't take that much to add the tobacco products in with that code. So I think our law department is drafting that. When we get a finished draft, I'll give it to you, and maybe you could pick out what you want to include in your zoning. And I'm going to take it to the village, too.
Great.
Would that include people who are already selling cigarettes today? Would that affect them?
No,
No, okay.
no. It's for future
Just wanna
places.
be sure. Thank you.
I was still working on the T21. It's, being discussed. Most of our neighboring counties have already passed it, Rockland, Westchester. Dutchess is working on it. What Dutchess did is they tried to exclude veterans. People felt that if you were 18 and you were going to war, that you should be able to smoke. But in talking to every veteran administrator, they say, it's not a good idea. We want healthy soldiers. We don't want people that are addicted to cigarettes. So,
Who's going to stop them?
believe it or not, there are a lot of people that, are against that. So that's something all the counties themselves are kind of ironing out. Last month, or not even last month, three weeks ago, I invited County Executive Mark Molinaro down to do a presentation on the Think Differently initiative that he initiated in 2015. This is just an initiative that brings to light what people with special needs go through every day. And we, as county officials, town officials, can make their life a little easier by doing simple things. The way we look at playgrounds, the way we deal with people with autism, instructing business, educating businesses and policemen. And I think the sheriff's office already has taken that training to deal with people with autism. Simple things, maybe harder things like staircases. And I'm glad to hear that you're going to do something about that staircase, because that's definitely a problem. But it's a great initiative. He has a daughter with autism. That's what spurred him to do this. There's simple things to do that don't really cost a lot of money. So I will leave the information with you if you care to look at it. That'd be great. I've been meeting with Amber and Cecily and Mr. Cunningham from Senior Resources about programs that are going to be in the senior center. We actually took a road trip and went over to the Mayapack Senior Center to see what they were offering over there, had lunch, talked to the seniors. So we're trying to make sure that we don't duplicate services. And if there's anything that we can take off Amber's plate to make their life a little easier, we're going to do that. We're going to be able to invite Amber's instructors to do programs at the center itself. So we're ironing out how we're going to do that, whether we're going to pay them instead of Amber. And it's, all insurance and contracts and all that. So I'd like to suggest that we're going to meet again in another week or two, that maybe we have a workshop with all of you and just tell you what we're thinking and how we're progressing.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Kenny Clare is also going over to talk to Amber, and we're planning an emergency preparedness workshop. This is an initiative by the governor. His people will come down and just, tell people what to do and what not to do in case of emergency. After all the emergencies we've had in the last session, I think it would be a good thing, especially for seniors. I'm going to try to get a bus to take people from Chestnut Ridge down to the rec. It's a little bigger in the rec. It's the best place to meet. They're going to give them information, backpacks with, emergency things.
Once and nobody showed. We had the
I
Red
know.
Cross come and do this
Well,
whole
I
thing.
think now that we've been through so many events that this
Hopefully.
might change their tune a little.
Good.
But we'll see. Monday, the 18th, is the grand opening of the post office. Hallelujah. It's been a long time coming. They've been waiting for a Verizon hookup for the last month. Go figure. But that'll be a great day for Cold Spring and Philipstown to have,
We've been waiting for 3 weeks for them to get their wires up for 403. Or 2
Yeah.
weeks now, I guess.
Yeah, they were all there today.
Still hanging
Yeah,
there. I
they've
called them
been there the
yesterday, and
last
they said
couple
they
of
would come
days.
down, and they were going to be there today.
They were.
Their building down there, there's a wire hanging down in front of their building. It's like you would at least want to clean up your own yard.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
The only
Or
other thing
worse.
I have is Riverkeeper Jeremy Cheshme is going to come to my health committee meeting to talk about plastic bags, and that's on Tuesday, the 12th. Anybody interested? I'd love to have some support on this. This is the initiative I've been working on and trying to get interest over there for quite a while, so it would be great. Great
All
thing
right.
to pass. Yeah. He's been making the rounds, so. And they figure the best way to do is ban the plastic bags and put a 5-cent charge on paper. That seems to be the best way to go. And I know it's something to get used to, and people kind of say, okay, what am I going to do with my kitty litter? But come on.
Yeah.
So, we'll see. Okay?
It works. I've seen other municipalities do it.
It's
Once you
even-
get used to bringing
once
in the
they-
bags, it
Yes,
works.
yes.
But,
And they say it's a hardship for seniors. But if you look at seniors when they go to shop,
They bring
most
their
of them
bags.
bring their
yeah,
own bags.
Right, because the other ones rip all the time.
It's,
So,
the rest of
those
the
old
population.
plastic, yeah.
Yeah.
As you mentioned before, obviously, there's so much plastic that ends up in the rivers and the oceans. It's just,
It's a real problem.
It's
Straws,
alarming, it really
plastic.
is, yeah.
It's a real problem.
and somebody quoted, they said, for something you use for such a short period, and then it lives forever,
Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
throwaway thinking we have to get out of, yeah.
I mean, there's islands of plastic in the ocean.
Yep.
Islands. So it's time to do something.
Yep.
And every human being on the planet has that in them.
Yeah.
Plastic.
Yeah.
Should get a
And-
plastic spine.
Your name came up at the shared services meeting today, that you weren't there, so.
I wasn't.
But
Is that why it came up?
That dirty
Geez, they're
so-and-so.
Tell them to bring it. Tell them to
Okay.
bring the meeting here.
All right, thank you. Cemetery Committee.
Can we go to Roberta first?
We could, yeah.
Yes. No, go ahead, go, yes. I can wait
All
for
right,
you.
we're going to jump right to it.
I appreciate it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is Roberto Mueller to provide an update regarding the progress on the Climate Smart Communities Program. Thank you, Roberto.
Maybe it's easier. You guys can
Yeah,
kind
just pass it down.
Run it around.
Are
So
there many things? Oh, there's two things. Awesome.
it's too many.
Should I bother Yes.
Watch it, Celia, watch it.
Hello, everyone. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Good. So before you, there are two documents. First is a report on the Climate Smart Committee Communities Task Force meetings for the past 2 months. And then the second document is a flyer that I'll describe in a little bit about a EV purchasing program. Being as brief as possible, we had our third and fourth meetings in April and May. Had 13 volunteer task force members at one, and then 9 at the next, because it was a couple days after the severe thunderstorms that passed through, so a lot of people couldn't make it for lack of electricity, among other things. And just reiterating, the task force has the responsibility of serving as a steering committee for Philipstown's Climate Smart Communities campaign, with the goals of achieving Climate Smart Communities certification, as well as the mitigation of an adaptation to climate change in the community of Philipstown. So during the past couple of meetings, we've been making a lot of progress, and I wanted to summarize where we're at and either here discuss a couple things or maybe just ask to have a workshop to discuss some things in detail. So one of the main things that we're looking at is how to conduct a community greenhouse gas emissions inventory. And after doing a lot of research and discussing it over the course of several meetings, learning from what other communities have done, and also seeing the limitations of other greenhouse gas emissions inventories, we have come to the conclusion that the requirements for the Climate Smart Communities certification for doing a community inventory are a little basic and won't give us the metrics to measure our progress 5 years, 10 years, 15 years into the future to really have real data. The reason for that is most of the inventories that are done are based on census information, and they come up with calculations based on national averages. People living in a house this size with this type of job most likely have this type of carbon footprint because of the distance from their building to the next, from the center of town, the likelihood that they're commuting. So there are all of these algorithms that they're using to come up with an average that doesn't actually represent Philipstown, but probably comes close to representing. The problem is all of the numbers are based on people. So a business gets assigned a greenhouse gas emissions amount based on the number of employees it has. So if you get that business to then change its insulation, upgrade the type of electricity that it's getting to change to renewables, it's a totally different metric. So based on the calculations in these inventories, you would have to reduce the number of employees to bring the number down. So after reading through this over and over, we realized this is going to totally handicap us down the road when we're trying to actually prove that the program is effective and that emissions are actually being reduced in the community. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. The problem is everyone is taking this course because it's expensive to do collection of actual real data, because it basically involves doing surveys and a lot of self-reporting from businesses and homeowners. So with that understanding, we started exploring the idea of if we could raise money to do this innovative kind of inventory that's really survey-based, how much would we have to raise? Who would perform such a type of inventory? So Jocelyn Apicello and Jason Angel from the Ecological Citizens Project, who are both sitting in on the volunteer task force, said, we'll look into the possibility of doing some private fundraising through some grants that are out there with private funds. And they were able to secure $5,000 through a fund and then also get $5,000 committed from Renewable Highlands to support this innovative inventory. So we have $10,000 committed to it. There's a possibility of applying to receive a state grant from their Climate Smart grants to match that $10,000. So potentially making available $20,000 to carry out the inventory. And we also have a small fundraising committee who are confident that if, as a backup plan, we weren't able to get the state match, that within the community of Philipstown, with their connections, they'd be able to ask a couple donors to match the $10,000. So there's a possibility of us through the task force raising the money to do this innovative side of it. In addition, we also just totally lucked out. There happens to be in Philipstown someone who works for an organization called ICLEI, which is a national organization that stands for Local Governments for Sustainability. And they work primarily with municipalities to do government operations inventories and community inventories. And they have online calculator tools, which right now we have access to for free. But with a membership, which costs $600 per year, it grants you access to all of their technical expertise. So they kind of hold your hand through the whole process. So what we're looking to, in addition to like hiring a firm to do this innovative inventory, is to raise money just within our task force to pay the $600 for getting this subscription to ICLEI. And the reason I mention that is one of their coordinators happens to live in Garrison and offered to, as time allows, volunteer on the task force and kind of help us through the process of doing the more basic side of the inventory to have as a comparison to the innovative work that we'll be doing. So that's kind of the proposal right now. However, we don't actually know how much it costs. So what we're working on is putting out a request for proposals saying we have for sure $10,000. We're looking to raise $20,000, and if need be, we could go further in our fundraising efforts. What could your firm offer with these different tiered costs for performing an innovative inventory, doing the survey type thing? Are there ways to save money on it if we involve volunteer efforts in terms of outreach and spreading surveys within the community? So as we get responses, we'll have a clear idea of what the actual budget limitations are and then what our fundraising goals should be. So it's ambitious, of course, because no other community so far in the Climate Smart program wants to do this because it is so involved. So my feeling was this burden should not fall on the town because that's way too much of an ask. But if within our volunteer task force, through the connections that we have, we're able to raise the money and can prove to the state that, you know, it's a valid project to be spending money on, and they approve it, then we can push it in that direction. And if it just doesn't work and for some reason we can't get the matching money and the firms say it's going to cost way too much, we always have the ICLEI inventory to just fall back on, which already meets the requirements for the Climate Smart program. So that's
The innovative inventory, you're saying that would include the greenhouse gas emissions inventory,
yes, yeah, that's what I mean.
but you don't know how much that is going to cost you.
Right, exactly.
Right. But so because no one's done it,
Right. So
But
first
there's-
we have to get some proposals. Yeah, there's
but
no.
there's not even a feeling of order of magnitude of no one knows.
So the man who works for ICLEI, his name is Cale Roberts. He was giving some ballpark numbers based on if you just focus on buildings, for example. You know, you may not be able to do an innovative inventory for every single aspect of community activities because it just might be way too much money. But most likely we could narrow it down to 3 or 4 things if we're limited to like $10,000. Especially the more volunteer hours that we can plug into doing it, the cheaper it should be overall. But the other logic behind hiring a firm was to also lend some credibility to actually performing a survey. So versus a bunch of us as volunteers kind of making it up, trying to figure out what the heck we're doing, and then bringing into question the validity of the results. To us, it makes more sense to actually raise the money, hire someone who's professional in doing this so that we know once we're actually coming up with solutions, what are the ways that we can reduce our carbon footprint, that we won't be as vulnerable to critiques.
Right. I mean, it adds a lot more validity to it if you have a third-party, objective,
Exactly.
independent professional doing it. All right. That's great.
So we're in that process, getting feedback, and once we get some proposals, then I'll bring them back to you, let you know what the amounts we're looking at. But basically, we understand, financing this stuff is incredibly complicated, and inevitably it has to come from the community in some form, with hopefully the state matching it and supporting it. So that's our goal, to push it as much as possible.
Great.
I wonder if it would be something to look at for corporate sponsorship for something like this. If Nissan is selling cars, what company is installing the charging stations? You know, reaching out to them for sponsorships for projects like this, because it's just going to benefit them.
Yeah, that would make
So,
sense too. And actually,
presenting-
Greg Wunner had a similar suggestion down the road for figuring out, for example, with charging stations, do we charge people for it, or do we get it sponsored? That kind of thing
And can we
to
get
increase.
the beginning stages of this sponsored by them too?
So I'll get to that in a second. So the application that we would submit is a consolidated funding application. So I sat down with our town clerk, and she gave me a manual, and then also I think last year's application, just as an example to kind of follow. And so I've been dabbling in this. It's very, of course, it's very detailed. So what I wanted to outline was the summary of ideas of what we would apply for, because there are a couple things in addition to this match for the community inventory. So I'll just summarize this. We discussed the timing of submitting a consolidated funding application for the Climate Smart Communities grant to pay for 50% of the innovative part of the community inventory. And the other side of it, something that I'd promised to try to figure out, pay for 50% of the cost of the Climate Smart Communities coordinator position, since the town right now is covering that, but also, spreading itself a little thin in doing so. As well as a few additional small projects. The grant is due by July 27th. Awardees are decided in December 2018, and funding becomes available in March 2019. So our proposal right now is to apply for the following. $6,000 match for 2-year Climate Smart Communities Coordinator position, which would run from March 2019 to March 2021. And this is based on Europa, McGovern's, and other communities' experiences of it taking usually about 3 years. So not including this year, those 2 following years, because, and this is the frustrating thing, you cannot receive a match for any activities that you have already completed before you're allowed to use the money. So for example, we could spend all this time volunteering and doing things before March 2019, but they're very firm in just saying, unfortunately, if you want to use any of the money from the state, you have to wait until next March to technically, use it or to bill for it. So that's the idea of the limitations based on. So it goes. And so 6,000 for the 2-year position, which would cover 1 year, 6,000 matched by town of Philipstown. So it's really 3,000 a year over the course of 2 years is the idea. Does that make sense? So I'll explain it. Okay. 20 hours per month, $25 per hour. That was just the example based on, who knows if I'll, continue each year, but this is just based on the precedent for this year. Approximately 10,000 for the innovative community greenhouse gas emissions inventory. And I put in to be administered with the help from the Ecological Citizens Project, since they're also throwing in the 5,000 match. Part of the grant that they got requires them to be involved in some of the selection process for the firm that we end up choosing. So the compromise is, as we are getting proposals and trying to pick a firm to carry out the inventory, it'll have to be a collaborative process. Involving them in helping us, like giving us basically recommendations on who we should pick and the reasons why, and then the town approves it if convinced that this given firm is the right one to go with. And then our task force makes a recommendation as well to the town. $600 for 2-year ICLEI membership, $600 to be matched by task force fundraising. Which earns us 3 points towards Climate Smart certification, and also grants us access to tools and technical support to conduct the standard portion of our community inventory. So that'll last over the course most likely of the Climate Smart project, so that we can continue to use their expertise, especially once we get to the climate action plan side, which is coming up with all the solutions. They have a lot of metrics and experience guiding communities and actually putting together a whole proposal of all the actions that you'll take, estimates of how many greenhouse gases it should reduce, the estimates of costs for the program. So they have a very streamlined way of doing it that'll speed it up, especially with having us as volunteers or me as part-time coordinator trying to figure out how to do it for the first time. So again, that example is just our task force doing the fundraising, and then we try to get a match from the state. And if we can't get a match, then we'll just push the fundraising a little further within the community. Right now, we have a subcommittee that's focusing on community outreach, and they estimate probably in a given year, and this will become a concrete number once they give us a budget. They're estimating probably about $1,000 to do outreach events, which would involve most likely holding events at the libraries, especially once we get to the stage of doing outreach in terms of individual homeowner actions that people can take, business outreach, and also doing work in the schools, trying to engage more students in the process. One of our volunteers, Crystal Ford, who's on the garden club, right now is leading this aspect of the project. So we'll raise money within the task force, and then also we'll apply to the state for matching 1,000 to support some of those activities. And that'll be for 2 years. And then also one idea is to create a website so that temporarily we can start posting some information to do online outreach about some of the programs that are available already, the work that a lot of organizations around Philipstown are doing, and kind of just create it as a hub, so to speak, so that people can find information related to various aspects of the Climate Smart campaign. And it's a small amount. It's only $164 per year. So same thing, we'll raise money within the task force, ask for a match from the state, and if we don't get the match, we'll raise the rest of the money to support that. Ideally, this information would be on the town website, but understanding timing limitations of updating the website, or how to create a space to post that information in a way that's interactive, that can have videos, educational content, that kind of stuff. That's something maybe in a workshop that we can figure out, the time scale for doing that kind of thing. Some communities have been really proactive with that, like Bedford, for example. And then other communities have very basic content in terms of their climate smart communities. But we feel it'd be really great to have a forum online so that we could share a lot of information. And one idea I didn't put in here is to have collaboration with something called Climate Stories. So the community outreach group wants to do some interviews around town and just start collecting maybe 2-minute clips of people just talking about what climate change means to them, and then posting it up in usually small numbers, maybe 10 to 15 at a time on this temporary website, so that people from the community can go online and take a look at it and just kind of connect in a more emotional way to what we're dealing with.
We got the idea from the students.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, they're the ones who.
Students did that.
Yeah,
It was
2 of
very
our
effective,
Haldane
yeah.
students proposed that. So all of that would total $17,764 based on the estimates that we have now. So that right now is our plan. Application is due July 27th. So the timing would be at the next town board meeting to pass a resolution approving the application for that expense. And then I would submit that online through the CFA application.
Great.
Any questions so far? Okay. So the other things that we're working on, this is really great. We lucked out. We discussed the process for completing the government operations greenhouse gas emissions inventory. So this is specific to government buildings, government fleet, any waste that comes out of government operations as well. Traffic lights, street lights, although I don't think the town really has street lights, right? 4?
For traffic lights.
Traffic lights, yeah.
No street lights. Yeah.
So we were invited to join something called the Climate Action Planning Institute Work Group, which is being held up at SUNY Ulster in Kingston. And it's 5 Ulster communities and Philipstown. So we got invited because Europa McGovern recognized we're in the exact same spot that a lot of these communities in Ulster are in terms of the planning phase for Climate Smart. So they're basically holding our hand through the process of carrying out the government operations inventory. And in addition, will help us put together a climate action plan for government operations. And through that, kind of come up with a template for doing the community scale climate action plan. So this will take place over the course of the next 10 months. So it'll finish in March 2019. And we meet once a month for 2 hours. What's great about it is they're helping us. So Europa McGovern and Jim Yenger, who's the other facilitator in the workshop, they're helping us collect aggregate electricity information for each community that's participating in this working group, from Central Hudson, from other utilities for the other communities, which basically speeds up the process because they were explaining when individual municipalities reach out to the utilities, it's much harder to navigate basically the bureaucracy to find someone who's going to get you what you need. So because he works Jim Younger works specifically on this for New York State, he already has the contacts and is just speeding up the process. So that's a huge thing. And then he has experience basically guiding communities through the entire Climate Smart certification process. So has expertise in the grant application process, and also doing the community inventories, as well as then coming up with some solutions. So that should be a lot of help. And they're offering that for free because they got a grant from NYSERDA to pay for it. So that was definitely a stroke of luck.
CFA application process, do you think, too? Is that what he's...
Yeah.
that's-
He's helped. He's written grants for communities before as a
Because
consultant.
that's
So.
a really tight timeline.
Yeah.
The 27th it's
Right.
big, yeah.
And so going back to the CFA, in conversations with the town clerk from the town of Dover and other communities, they were saying I should dedicate a month. Just expect that it's going to take about that much time to go through the application, to edit it, make sure that we have approval on all of the details of it, and then have it ready, by early July so we can submit it. So that's our timeline right now so far. Along with that, we discussed applying for a FlexTech grant from NYSERDA to pay for 50% of the cost of performing energy audits on Philipstown government buildings. And this is a required action for Climate Smart certification. It's not required for 100% of buildings, but you get more points the higher percentage of buildings that you perform energy audits on. To me, it makes sense to just go ahead and see if we can do an audit on all the buildings, because then we just have very exact professional information on where we need upgrades in terms of insulation, HVAC, air sealing, yada, yada, yada. And especially pertinent. Yeah, no, in consideration of the renovations that I know are in the pipeline. So possibly the workshop idea is maybe to sit down and just figure out, all right, what's the timeline? Because FlexTech luckily is open year round.
Oh, good.
So that's not, we don't have to wait till next March. Thank God. And it's a much smaller amount to deal with in terms of grant application. So getting to the flyer, we edited a flyer inviting Philipstown community members to participate in Sustainable Westchester's, and that's a nonprofit this guy knows about, EV, electric vehicle purchasing discount program as an affiliate municipality. So they're allowing anyone within Philipstown to participate in this program that's partnered with Nissan of New Rochelle that gives an additional $3,000 discount on their 2018 Nissan Leaf, in addition to federal and state subsidies. However, unfortunately, they run this program only from January to June 30th. So we've been doing outreach already because we found out that we were accepted 2 weeks ago, but we're asking for the town to spread the word if people come across it and are looking to buy a car within this month, there's the opportunity that they could make something out of this purchasing deal. Hopefully, it will be renewed next year as well. Sustainable Westchester has to negotiate each year, and next year, I hear that the Nissan Leaf, the range is supposed to go up to 200 miles. Right now it's at 150. Apparently for most people, 150 miles in terms of commuting is plenty, in terms of round trip. I've done so much reading on electric vehicles recently. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. And there's a lot more competition between companies now in manufacturing EVs, so it will definitely be coupled with increased subsidies for charging stations, for supporting infrastructure, figuring out electricity payer rates to encourage people to charge their electric vehicles at night. So I know Con Edison is also providing subsidies for folks within Westchester to encourage them to use electric vehicles. So there's a lot of stuff happening. It's right now probably best for people who don't have to commute too far, likely have an alternate gas vehicle that they can use for road trips, or have the ability to borrow a friend's car or something like that when they go on road trips and leave their electric vehicle with that person in exchange, which obviously is not something that insurance companies would want to hear about. But people are trying to be creative, figuring out how to make electric vehicles work, because they are brilliant for commuting, but have limitations in terms of other activities. So that program lasts till June 30th, and hopefully will run again next year. So the last thing related to that, so following several months of research and discussions, learning about different charging stations, we decided within the task force, and also with some conversations with Richard and Mike, and also Greg Warner, some electricians who are on our task force or have done installations of EV charging stations, we'd prefer to wait until, one, we complete the standard portion of the community inventory, and also we feel like it would be a better process to have conversations with the Cold Spring and Nelsonville Board of Trustees. Also do a survey of the Philipstown community, so homeowners, business owners, to see if there's support for installing an EV charging station or multiple stations in the community, so using tax dollars for that. And then if so, where ideal locations would be. So trying to get community input to really figure out, for example, should there be one up at Perks Plaza? Would it make sense to have one here at Town Hall, or would people be more likely to use it if it's at the train station, or smack dab somewhere in the middle of Cold Spring, or maybe somewhere in Nelsonville as well? Do folks in Continental Village, want to have access to something like that? Most people who have an electric vehicle would charge at home, unless you rent and you don't have access to your car nearby. There are different trade-offs. Most charging stations right now are called level 2, so they run on, I think, 240 volts, and will take usually 3 to 4 hours, sometimes a little bit longer depending on the range of a car, to fully charge it. There are faster charging stations that can charge in 30 minutes to 40 minutes, but they take a lot of electricity. They're very costly to install. I'm learning for some cars, they actually run the risk of doing damage to the batteries if the batteries are charged with, they're called DC fast charge, if they're charged too often using this mode of charging. So the manufacturers are still trying to work out some of the kinks revolving around it. So those types of charging stations are really being installed along highways where charging for 4 hours is not realistic for people. Some countries, I know Japan, they're very far ahead in terms of installing DC fast charging and level 2 charges all over the country. In the US, it's a lot harder because we have so many more road miles to cover. But these companies like Nissan, Chevrolet, BMW, for example, that have electric vehicles are trying to come up with some sort of standard that fits different brands of vehicles. And then there's Tesla, on the other hand, that are developing their own supercharger network across the U.S. So probably 3-4 years from now, things will really kind of take shape and be a lot easier for consumers in terms of knowing what to do if they want to buy an EV, and also feeling confident that they won't get stranded if they start taking longer road trips. So our next step with that would be I'll go to the Cold Spring and Nelsonville Village Board meetings and bring up the proposal of some collaborative process to come up with an idea of, first, do we have support from the community? And then, if so, where are good locations to install these types of charging stations? And most likely, the subsidies from the state will renew next year, based on conversations that I had with the coordinator of the program. So, other than that, next steps will be to continue the government operations inventory, prepare the consolidated funding application, receive the proposals from firms to do the innovative part of the inventory. We'll continue outreach on this EV purchasing program for the next month. And then also we'll put together plans for community outreach and community fundraising for the rest of the year. So lots of things going on, but luckily we have a lot of volunteer interest and a lot of support, especially from Europa McGovern. She's been really great so far in helping us. And I think we've been very lucky with Sustainable Westchester kind of taking us under their wing, lending some of their expertise, even though we're not within Westchester County.
Who is coming up next?
Yeah.
Roberto, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
you're welcome. My pleasure.
I'm really, really impressed the amount of work you've done. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
That's just the fundraising part of it. He'd be here for another hour talking about adaption and mitigation talks we've had. So, thank you.
All right. We're going to move right into the agenda now.
Yeah.
We're going to have an update from Jewel Assets as we're going to slot that in on the agenda. Jewel Assets is helping us along with our community choice aggregation program. So, Glenn, if you want to step up and give us the update.
That's his computer bag. You left it downstairs earlier.
Thanks for having me in. I'm Glenn Weinberg from Jewel Community, and as the supervisor mentioned, we are the administrator for the Community Choice Aggregation Program, launched and spearheaded by Renewable Highlands, a local group here, as I think most or all of you know. We've been selected by the town as the administrator of that program, and we've since partnered with a nonprofit team here in the Hudson Valley, which is part of the nonprofit for the Institute of Building Technology and Safety, which does a lot of solar auditing work and other work for NYSERDA and other work around the state and actually beyond New York State. But we've partnered specifically with a local team here, Jeff Demansky and Victor Pierre Melendez, who have been doing a lot of great work on the outreach side, and I'll give a brief summary of what they've been up to and some upcoming events to mark on the calendar. I had some unsolicited response for Roberto, but I'll save it. I think he's skipped, so I'll save those comments and I'll send those to him. But just a couple thoughts on all of the great work that he's doing. But first and foremost, to offer, we are holding an outreach, a public Q&A. We've done one of these before in St. Mary's last year, and we're going to do another one coming up June 26th. That's a Tuesday evening. I believe the start time is 6:30. There'll be a bunch more available online in the next few days. In fact, they just got their Facebook page up and website up, and I don't have all the URL details quite yet, but I'm sure I'll have them maybe even tomorrow. I was just talking to Jeff earlier about that. And we'll all be at that event on June 26th, and that will really be more of a launch event to describe to the public what's been going on and solicit feedback from the public and to announce all of those sorts of things, Facebook pages and websites and all sorts of public outreach opportunities. And that's really the phase that we're in right now, is the public outreach phase. So I haven't been in front of you guys for a while, so I'll maybe go back a little bit. As you know, last year we were really working on getting a group of municipalities together and developing an implementation plan, which we did and submitted to the Public Service Commission in the fall of last year. It sat in Albany, as these things tend to do, for about 5 months, but we did receive approval for that plan in March, which is great. And there came a couple of follow-up tasks for us, which we've completed now a few weeks ago and have that all submitted to them. And so we are now really full force in the outreach phase. We've been doing outreach, of course, for quite a while in Philipstown and in the surrounding area. But now we're really in the kind of the official outreach phase as deemed by the state. And we're doing, as I mentioned, a public event in Cold Spring on the 26th. There'll be a beacon event on the 23rd, a very similar event. That's a Saturday afternoon, 1:30 at the Howland Library. As
What
I
time
mentioned,
is the event in Cold Spring?
6:30, I believe, is the start time, and I'll make sure that I double check that. But that's here in St. Mary's.
Oh, it's going to be at St. Mary's again?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
all
it'll be at St. Mary's again. And then on July 10th, we'll be in Newburgh, and that'll be a slightly different event, and that'll really be an event focused on the local solar partnerships, which is a really innovative and exciting piece of the proposal that we submitted to the state and that was accepted, which allows us to partner as a community choice aggregation program. Typically, community choice aggregation programs, and I'll promise I'll go back and define what that is, because I know it's one of those tough acronym-y type policies. But typically, community choice aggregation programs are authorized, the way that New York has set it up, are authorized to go out to the market and solicit from from retail suppliers who go and buy energy for us on the wholesale markets. It's sort of a traditional market type policy instrument. And what we've been able to integrate into our program proposal for the Renewable Highlands program is the first of its kind anywhere in the country, and as well as the state. It's really exciting that we're able to actually use a new market, which is the community renewables market, which are smaller or mid-scale type projects, mostly solar, but also hydro, especially here in Central Hudson Territory. There are a number of hydro sites that are registered for this sort of market. And we're able to buy directly from them, 100% clean energy. And we're actually, because of the way that New York State has set up that market and incentivized the growth of that market, we can actually offer guaranteed savings to the degree that we're able to partner with those types of projects. And in your packet, there's a summary of, I believe it's the 17th slide. There's a summary of just these types of projects. I believe there are 42 of these approved New York State projects. They're not all built, but they've gone through the approval process at the state level and have paid their interconnection fees, et cetera. I think it's 100 and some odd megawatts, potential $183 million of local economic development, and that's just right here in the Hudson, the Lower Hudson Valley, Central Hudson Utility Territory. So again, just to back up, that's the high level, and I'll be quick. I know you have a full agenda. To back up, community choice aggregation is a policy that allows cities, towns, and villages in New York State to source their own energy on behalf of their residents and small businesses. That's it. That's really the policy tool itself. What you do with it is entirely up to the community, and that's kind of the exciting part of it. So the community defines how to use that tool, that very versatile tool, but it's just a tool, in order to meet their own goals. So we have a goal of 100% renewable energy. It's a very similar goal that we had when we launched the first such program in the state in Westchester County, which now has over 100,000 customers and 23 communities in Westchester County that are participating. They have saved $10 million as of April of this year in aggregate, so been really performing well on the savings side, and 70% of that program is buying 100% renewable energy. It was at the time, 2 years ago when we launched, and still is the largest renewable energy purchase in New York State history, something we're really proud of. But it was really a first step, and the reason I say that is because we're buying through that program primarily Midwest wind certificates. That's how we get renewable energy in the Westchester case. There isn't a whole lot of solar or wind, of course, in that area or New York State yet at all, for that matter. A lot of old hydro, but solar has been slow to come on. So the opportunities to source locally at that time were really nil. So we had to go look out to Midwest wind farms to meet that 100% goal. It's all different now, just 2+ years later. There are these new markets, new policies implemented at the state level that allow communities that have authorized themselves to join a community choice aggregation program, like the town of Philipstown has done, to meet those goals in a much more impactful, local, and economical way. And again, I'm happy to give the details of that, but I'll give the high level tonight, and if there are questions, I'm happy to stay and answer. Just want to make sure I'm not forgetting anything too critical. So I mentioned the events and the new online resources, which we'll be launching at those events coming up in the next couple weeks. We are in the outreach phase now here in the spring and early summer, and we'll be moving quickly. Roberto talked about the difficulty in getting data from utilities, and we're going through that process right now. They're vetting our security protocols, and we're going through a pretty robust process, I'll say that, to use that word, in order for them to feel comfortable enough to give us that secure data. It is confidential utility data. It is not super sensitive. The municipality won't be held to the same security protocols that we are, just to, they do take it very seriously, of course, whenever they're sending their own data. But we're going through that process now with Central Hudson. And as soon as we have that data in hand, we'll be ready. We're going through the process now of course, soliciting feedback from the public to see what their priorities are. And when we have that data in hand, we'll be able to go out to the market and solicit for energy supply and evaluate bids and award a contract or contracts to multiple suppliers in line to launch by early fall. And the last thing I'll mention is the questions often come up. As I mentioned, in Westchester Power program, those customers have saved in aggregate over $10 million. The question always comes up, how much savings can we expect, especially if we're looking at 100% renewable energy? And the answer is that you can expect on the energy supply, the traditional energy supply, the range is going to be about $50 to $75 a home. I think I have some even more conservative numbers in your slide deck there, just to be really conservative. The local solar option and hydro, I don't want to leave them out, that I mentioned before, that customers are going to be able to partner directly, subscribe is the sort of market term, subscribe directly to these local projects. That's going to save them roughly $100 a year additively on top of that savings on the energy supply. And then there are additional authorizations that we have, for instance, to aggregate the collective capacity of all the smart thermostats in town and all the other towns that we're working with, and actually bid them into the state energy markets to get customers paid for their willingness to actually reduce their consumption during summer peak hours. So that's a program that's a market or a product that's been available to large consumers, hospitals, industrial, large commercial, for a number of years, decades, but has never been available for residential. And the reason is that they're small and that there's really no way of measuring and connecting. So it's a combination of a technology like a smart thermostat or a smart heat pump or something like that, and the aggregation, this aggregation effect that allows us to collect the aggregate capacity of those devices in residential and small commercial sites and bid them into the market in a way that will actually save or earn folks another $40 to $50 a year. So in total, the consumer here in Philipstown can expect to see about $200 in savings plus earnings if they are able to enroll in all three of those types of levels of engagement. And those are details that we'll explore more at the June 26th event and in perpetuity through our outreach to the town. So I'll leave it there, and if there are questions from the board or for anybody, I'm happy to.
Well, Glenn, thank you. You had mentioned $10 million in the course of 2 years.
Yeah.
That's what it was. I mean, that's impressive.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what I want, one of the things that I wanted to tell Roberto, and I'll tell you, and is that we are going to have really good data because of this program. We're going to have really good data on the number of homes and small businesses that are converting to 100% renewables, and what does that mean for greenhouse gas emissions deferrals? And that's something that we can share and work with the task force that he's set up to inform their analysis as well as to help on their project in general. As someone who's burned the midnight oil on a CFA application myself, I'm happy to lend any experience I may have with that as well.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Glenn. That's great.
That's a great offer.
Yeah. So those are two very big programs that we're working on here in Philipstown to try to offset or help with the climate. And we're going to continue to do so. So thanks for all the work on that, Glenn, and thanks to Roberto again. Right. Following up on Roberto's presentation, we're going to we need a resolution authorizing Roberto Muller to apply for the 2018 Consolidated Funding Grant on behalf of the town of Philipstown. Can I get a motion on that?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. And I vote aye. We need a resolution authorizing Carl Frisenda, Highway Superintendent, to purchase a stainless side dump body sander in the amount of $33,463.18. This is in the budget.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. And I vote aye. We need a resolution authorizing Supervisor Shea. That's me. Okay. To sign the fire protection agreement between the Village of Cold Spring and the town of Philipstown. So this was something we'd been working on for a while. There were some complications, I guess, but we've gotten that worked out. Could I get a motion on the resolution?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye. We need a resolution authorizing Supervisor Shea to sign a letter of occupancy of the Philipstown Depot Theater.
We did that.
We did it, but we need to,
You already did it.
I know I did it, but we need the authorization nunc pro tunc.
Right, so moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Thank you for your work on that, Nancy.
That was already, yeah, thanks. You did it twice. It's all right.
Right. Item 6 is introducing a proposed local law imposing a 6-month moratorium on the submission and processing of application for land use approval for vape shops. Let's take a look at that. Go through the stack. Resolution introducing local law number 3 of the year 2018, whereas the town board of the town of Philipstown has a local law before it entitled "A Local Law Establishing a 6-Month Moratorium on the Submission and Processing of Applications for Land Use Approvals for Vape Shops within the town of Philipstown," and whereas in order to enact the said local law, it is necessary to formally introduce it and hold a public hearing on it. Now therefore be it resolved as follows, that the movement of this resolution does hereby introduce the proposed local law, and that a public hearing for said proposed local law shall be set for How long do we have to wait for that, Teresa? We need this 10 days? I think it's 10 days.
Yeah, it's normally 10 business days.
Yeah, it's 10 business days.
Yeah.
Where would that put us, Nancy?
I am gonna do, that brings us to, I want to do it on a Wednesday, the 20th?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the public hearing for that will be set for June 20th, 2018 at 7 o'clock, not 7:30 p.m., and that due notice of the same is directed to be given by publication and posting. Can I get a motion on the resolution?
So moved.
It's going to be a roll call vote on that. Councilwoman Montgomery.
Aye.
Councilman Van Tassel.
Aye.
Councilman Leonard.
Aye.
Councilman Flaherty.
Aye.
And I vote aye. So that public hearing again will be on June 20th? 20th at 7 p.m. And we'll get that in the local papers. If you need a copy of the law, you can pick one up at the clerk's, or we have them up here. Discussion on a proposed local law to amend Town Code Chapter 175 entitled Zoning to add the use of museum to the uses permitted in the OC district. Councilman Montgomery, would you like to speak about this?
Oh, this is something that we were inspired to do because we realized that there's this wonderful facility up on Route 9 that's operating as a private collection that could be used as a public museum. Right now, it's by invitation only, but if they have the proper zoning, it could be opened up as a public museum. So I think it would be a great addition to the community, great for tourism. They have been incredibly generous to the community, and I just think it's our mission as a community to promote culture, and Lord knows they have it there. It's a really great place. So.
It is a great place and a great resource. They're also providing local employment and bringing in, who knows how many visitors to the town. Again, I've said this multiple times, but to have that as the ultimate result of a derelict building, you just couldn't ask for a better outcome. It really is a great place, and they are really great community members.
Just the number of people that worked on the project from town and that continue to work there, and it will just open up more opportunities for local employment too.
All right. Anything else from the board?
Yes, obviously, this would be for the entire OC district, and also, obviously, any applicant would have to go through site plan approval, so
Yes.
that somebody doesn't realize they can put it in now. No, they still have to go through a process.
No, you're still going to have to go in front of the planning board, which, believe me, Magazzino certainly did.
Yeah, that's definitely in depth.
Yeah.
Make
So.
sure you have enough parking and so forth, so.
Yeah, we could get together. This law, we don't have a number on it yet. We don't have a proposed planning board date. It's not, we're not going to be able to move this ahead tonight, but we could do it next week.
Sure. Or the 20th when we are on.
Yeah, I
already.
mean, I don't think there's a great rush to do this, so we could do it on the 20th. Yeah, I mean, kill two birds with one stone. So then after the public hearing, we can go ahead and introduce this as a local law on the 20th.
Okay, I'll put that in too.
Right. So Teresa, you'll get that before the clerk. Terrific, thank you. Just to back up for a moment, on the 6-month moratorium on the vape shops, I would be remiss if I didn't give a huge amount of credit to Councilman Montgomery, who has been pushing this initiative along. And it's something we really don't want to see. It's amazing that, localities, local municipalities are being forced to do this, and that the federal government is stepping up. And this is obviously being marketed to children, and it's just not something that's acceptable. You don't have products with Fruit Loop names or cherry vape for adults. These are things that are being marketed to children, and we're not going to allow that to happen in Philipstown. So.
And I appreciate that our attorney turned the moratorium around so quickly. It's something that we spoke about back in November when we were talking about things on the coalition. And I know that the county's working on offering language with their law department to the town. So a moratorium is the best answer right now, because as we've seen in the village, these can pop up at any time. And, you know, we can't prohibit businesses from opening, but who wants a vape shop? Who wants this product in our town? We know that it is poisoning our kids. We know it's where they get their start, you know, for potential drug use. There's such evidence that shows it starts with tobacco, it starts with vaping, and then it goes on from there. So this is just one of the many things we can do to combat this crisis. I'm sure.
Contains a number,
I was just saying, is there any reason we can't do it for longer than 6 months?
Well, hopefully we'll have the law by
We'll have
then.
the law.
Okay, gotcha.
We definitely will have that
Yeah,
law in
I'm
place.
hoping,
Okay.
yeah.
And I hope you consider putting tobacco in that as well. I'll send you the,
Yeah, when you get the information from the
I
county.
missed, what you were saying, can the county prohibit this? Will the county,
it's a local law.
But-
We're suggesting to the towns that you add tobacco
but can it be a countywide law? Why?
zoning, because it's home rule. Town and villages, it's not county.
Well, I mean, the moratorium's going forward. When we write that, when the law comes up.
Tobacco, whether a moratorium could go through on that as well.
Well, we can talk to council
But we'll
about
have to
that.
talk
It
to
could be,
council about that.
I mean, it could be state too.
Yeah.
It's local. It's local.
I
It's
understand that,
home
but
rule.
we could, like, how the state regulates alcohol, we could,
It's a zoning law. Any zoning law, as you know, is up to you to put through.
I'm
Oh.
looking at a bigger picture here.
We'll move this along and we'll speak with council and I'm sure you'll be in touch with.
Yeah, he's already working on it, and if the county has the language anytime soon, that would be great too.
Great. All right. It's just an incredibly obnoxious habit too. When you're walking or you're seeing these clouds of this stuff coming out of cars.
They contain a lot of harmful chemicals in there besides the user. It's to the people that are around it.
Right.
So, you know, it goes beyond the person.
Bad smoke, I guess, right?
It's worse in some ways.
I mean, they tried to open one in the village of Cold Spring, it lasted a day, right? I mean, you know, so
Yeah,
take it
they're
too far.
not going to be all
Again,
that
it's a
popular.
complicated process to pass the law. You can't prohibit. It's like our adult shops, you know, it's like. And-
Which I don't understand at all.
Yeah, it's very, it's like, why do we have it?
I mean, just don't get the problem. All right, well, we'll move ahead on that. Moving on to more pleasant business.
Yeah.
We have a resolution appointing Judy Farrell to the Recreation Commission. We're so pleased to be able to do this. We have this great volunteer for our Rec Commission, and we're really happy to have such great volunteers in the town. Really fortunate. I mean, the Rec Commission has always been such a fine group and does super important work and really does support our Rec Department and Amber. So,
Sorry I missed your interview the other night, but I'm sure they were nice to you.
Yes.
Good.
They were
This
nice.
time.
They can be rough.
Judy, thank you so much. With that, I would entertain a resolution appointing Judy Farrell to the Recreation Commission.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Thank you.
And that's for a 10-year term, right?
No
Seven.
paroles.
It is 7.
That's it.
7 years.
7 years,
Oh, we're just gonna, we'll move it. We can move that.
yeah. Can't back out now.
I got on it when I was 12.
All right, we're going to be meeting on the 20th, so as far as scheduling workshops, that's going to be it for now. There is a notice here to reschedule the July monthly meeting from July 5th to July 12th. I think that's a good idea because I don't want to be here July 5th.
No.
So
Try to travel back.
we'll go ahead and do that. If I get a motion rescheduling the monthly meeting from July 5th to July 12th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The meeting will be July 12th. Teresa will be here. No? Oh, not the 5th. Nobody's going to be here the 5th. The code enforcement monthly report for the town of Philipstown, fees collected $38,394.85. Wow. Total number of permits issued 45. New one-family dwelling 0. Additions, alterations, repairs 4. Additions, alterations, repair to commercial buildings 1. All other permits, pools, sheds, decks, plumbing, HVAC, generators, etc. 40. These certificates of occupancy 30 issued. 4 stop work orders, and 2 inspections of public assembly. Projects of significance, 7 Garrison Landing restoration complete, nearing opening. That's Dolly's, I guess, down there. Yeah, I can't wait till there's something down there.
Dining's old place?
Yeah, the old Guyanets. That'll be a great addition down there. I know everybody's looking forward to it. Garrison Cafe at Route 9D reopening is pizza and Italian cuisine. I went by there last night. It smelled very good.
Can we do a ceremonial blessing that it stays open or something, please?
Anyone know who the owners are?
I don't.
No, just curious. Yeah, I noticed today on my way to work that it was open, yeah.
Stop in for a slice.
Grano to open again and we'll be covered.
Garrison's going to have all these places to eat now.
Far drive for me.
Yeah, right. Well, you can take an electric
My
vehicle.
electric car will make it.
The code report for the Village of Cold Spring, fees collected $1,728. Come on, Cold Spring. Total number of permits issued 5. Additions, alterations 3. Additions, alterations, repairs to commercial buildings 2. 5 certificates of occupancy, both submitted by Greg Wunner. Thank you to Greg. Can't say enough about Greg. I think we are really fortunate to have him.
Love him.
One more item we have on the agenda, I jumped ahead here, the hiring of a justice court clerk. The justice court clerks interviewed, I think there were 6 candidates. One definitely stood out, Cindy Paraggio. She's got 11 years experience in courts. She has 7 certifications. She holds 5 licenses, and she is the vice president of Dutchess County Magistrate Courts Clerks Association, soon to be the president. She has worked all over the Hudson Valley, and she's just going to be a really great addition here. The justices were very strong on trying to get Ms. Paraggio. She holds 2 college degrees, and she is also a really nice person. I interviewed her myself after both justices had interviewed her, and just have nothing but positive things to say about her. So she would start 2 weeks from this past Monday, and it'll be a great addition. Her working with Kelly, I think she's really going to help Kelly out there. And I know Kelly's been in there alone for the last, month. So there's going to be a lot of things to catch up on. But I can't say enough about her. I think she's worked in Irvington Justice Court for 6 years, Town of Pound Ridge. She's worked in Wappingers, and we called all her references, and the judges, said that she knows the law better than they do. So I think we're really lucky to be able to take her away from Wappingers, as we did taking our building inspector away from Fishkill.
That's it.
So, well, good people are tough to find. They get in and settle in, so I think we're lucky. So with that, I would entertain a resolution for the hiring of Cindy Paraggio as the Justice Court Clerk, the second Justice Court Clerk, with a start date of, what's 2 weeks from this past Monday, Nancy?
I'm sorry, what?
The start date, what would 2 weeks from this past Monday, what was Monday? It was June 18th, thank you, Teresa. Starting on June 18th.
Get my calendar up.
I'm relying on you too
I was,
heavily.
I was somewhere else.
Oh, okay. Maybe you were in Justice Court. Could I get a motion on a resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? I vote aye. Any opposed?
No, I'm just gonna abstain.
All right. Thank you, Bob. Let's go back to the agenda. Any other business for the board?
Just want to let you know, I got all the paperwork ready for the solar panels.
Aha,
Okay.
great.
But unfortunately, he came back to me just the other day. He's asking for additional paperwork. So I got to go back down and see Susan and see if we can get that. She's looking for some type of balance sheet, which Susan did not have readily available when I asked for it. So once we get that, hopefully we can start moving forward.
All right. Bob, that's great work. Thank you so much for working on that. I tried it and just couldn't get it across the goal line, and I know Bob's been working on it hard, so my thanks to you. And I mean, again, that's another program that we're looking to undertake and talk about local solar. You know, we could have 100 kilowatts of solar on, plus, you think 100, they were talking about 120 kilowatts of solar on top of our rec department, and just be able to run the entire recreation department off of renewable energy. So there are 3 big initiatives we're looking at just tonight, doing our part to save the environment. Anything from the audience? Yes, Michelle.
Good evening, Michelle Smith, Hudson Highlands Land Trust. I just wanted to make a comment on a process that's going on in town. As you know, has been mentioned at town board before, there is a development project that's received a positive declaration under SECRA. And I believe is it the first time that the town has had to, or a town board has had to deal with the full environmental impact statement and that process?
I don't know of any.
I've never seen a full
Yeah.
EIS.
So I just wanted to, I mean, the process already started. I just wanted to make a couple of comments. I mean, normally I don't like to bring planning board stuff to the town board, but I just thought this, because it is the first time, or it's believed to be the first time that the town is going through this, I'm hoping to make some helpful observations, because I'm sure that we all want this process to go very well and be very fair to everybody, the applicant, the neighbours, the other interested parties. So last week there was a notice of, it came out from the town, notice of public hearing that came out. And it's about the very first step in the process is coming up with a draft scoping document for the draft environmental impact statement. And basically that's a table of contents that defines all the significant environmental impacts and the methods of analysing and studying them, as well as then mitigation steps and alternatives to avoid certain significant impacts. So there was a notice of the public hearing in which the public can make comments and other interested agencies can make comment on the draft scoping document. But I went to Town Hall yesterday to pick up my copy of the draft scoping document and it's not there. And comments are due by June 21st, according to the notice. So we're 2 weeks away from from comments being due on the draft scoping document, but there is no scoping document. There's no draft scoping document to comment on. And I understand the reasons. I've spoken to Tara, I've spoken to people helping with this process on the planning board. And I think a lot of it has to do, honestly, with the weather and cancelled meetings and, things that have happened. So it's not really anybody's fault. I'm just worried about the consequences of having a public hearing on June 21st and being able to submit comments up until June 21st, but having no document available to people to be able to review and make those comments. And, it's not just the public, it's the other agencies who might think this is important, like emergency services, state parks. They all need time to make comments on these draft scoping documents. So I just think in the interest of having this process go as well as possible, especially since it's the first time that the town's really been doing one of these full environmental impact statements on a development, I just wanted to point that out. And I hope that all interested parties have enough time to comment on the draft scoping document.
At the planning board meeting the other night, they mentioned that they didn't have to close it at the 21st. They could keep that ongoing for a few more weeks if necessary.
Oh, okay, because that's not, the public, this notice has been posted. It came out first by email on last Friday, June 1st, and then it's been published in the paper and everything. So, I mean, if that changes, I think that alleviates concerns around this, but right now it's all been posted. It was also posted in the DEC environmental, what's it called, EMB, Environmental Notice Bulletin that came out this morning, yesterday morning, June 6th. So it's posted in there. So all indications are that comment period ends on June 21st.
Well,
So-
at that meeting, very few people had a copy of that.
I know,
Right,
and that was
and,
also a concern, was the fact that the
Steve
planning
Gaba was
board.
one of them that had it. So,
Yeah.
he briefly touched on it. He did not read the whole entire thing. But, the point of that meeting the other night basically was to pass a resolution, as I indicated in my report, that
Yeah.
they had to do a formal resolution saying, okay, we were going with a positive declaration.
Yeah.
And that's really all that came out of that part of that planning board.
There is a
except for the
60-day period if they're deemed to have approved the draft scoping document at that meeting. There's a 60-day
You're right. You
period.
did mention it was 60 days.
Yeah.
You're correct. So
For-
I
to
think the time
complete
clock.
to complete it, not the public comment period, but to complete the whole thing. So they'll probably want to in public comment so that they've got time to digest everything. So I'm just worried that time is sort of
They
running
did
out.
mention the 60 days, as you're correct. They did
Yeah.
mention 60 days.
From the
Starting
time,
on June 21st, from my understanding.
no, it's from the time that the lead agency adopts. I think it is. I could be. I mean, this should check with the attorney and everything. But I just read through the DEC guidance this afternoon, and I thought it was 60 days from the time that the lead agency accepts the draft scoping document. So.
Well,
So-
if it goes beyond, according to what I got and I watched on TV, is according to Steve Gaba, if it goes beyond the 60-day period from the 21st, you have to get concurrence with the applicant as well, although he felt, in reality, since it's really in their best interest, they probably would agree to that as well, if it was
Yeah.
necessary.
But I thought the 60 days starts from that planning board meeting, from the
It
June
can,
5th.
it can, but there is a
Yeah.
potential for it to go beyond that
Yeah.
if there's mutual concurrence, and that's what I got listening
Yeah.
to it from Steve Gaba.
Anyway, hopefully we can work out the details, but I just want to make sure that there's enough time for people to comment on the draft scoping document.
Yeah, I have to agree, it does seem odd that we would be posting a hearing for a document that doesn't exist yet.
Yep, yep.
It's also,
It existed, but not many people seem to have it.
Well,
Do
no,
we- If we don't have it at town hall,
actually,
in my mind, it
what-
doesn't exist.
Well, what exists is a draft.
Well, maybe
It's
that was
like a
draft,
preliminary
draft,
draft
yes,
scoping document, because the reason that it hasn't gone to town hall yet is because there's still some changes to be made to the document that was discussed at the
Correct.
June 5th planning board meeting. So it's not available yet.
correct. One of the board members asked for 2 additional areas to be added
Right.
to it, so they have to incorporate
So it's
that.
like a secret draft?
Secret. It's a secret.
Also, just because you obviously brought it to my attention as well, the Conservation Board will be discussing this issue on June 12th. So anybody
Okay.
be aware that the Conservation Board, I've spoken to Max about it, and we both concur it should be discussed by the Conservation Board as well. So they will be discussing it.
Okay, good, thanks.
Thanks, Michelle, for bringing that to our attention.
Letting us know we're screwing up the first EIS we ever did, you know? Thanks. Anyone else?
Can you reach that?
Can we help her? There you go.
I do here. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi. Good evening. I just wanted to do, it's been a while since I think I've updated the board a little bit on the work I've been doing. And so before it kind of gets ahead of me, I just wanted to give a quick overview. And
So this is Danielle McCarthy.
Yes. Yes, thank you. Sorry, Danielle Pack McCarthy, Substance Abuse, Town of Philipstown, Substance Abuse Prevention and Treatment Coordinator. A couple of things. First of all, with the vaping issue, I was at a conference recently, prevention conference, and there were people from, I think, Dutchess and Ulster who were really, and then with Tobacco Free New York, who have legal staff on hand to help towns out with this. So I can pass along that information because it was, they were very professional and very willing to help. So I was impressed by the services they were willing to offer local municipalities. I recently, a couple weeks ago, traveled up at. I was invited by Chief Brandon Del Pozo of Burlington Police Department to. I was invited for a meeting and a book event and signing. He recently, within the past 2 years, hired a social worker as part of the police department around the opioid crisis. And her office is right next to his, and they work in conjunction with each other around these issues, and really do an unbelievable job of bringing the entire community together. I sat in on they call it community stat meeting, and it was an 8 a.m. Thursday morning, and they had 40 representatives from around the state. They had the Attorney General's office there. They had Bernie Sanders' office there. They really, all the different police departments and first responders had a seat at the table. And I was just really impressed by the community coming together around these issues. And so much happened in that 2 hours. It was a 2-hour meeting, and just so much exchange happened, and really respectful conversation, pushback, from the Attorney General on someone talking about decriminalization. And there was, it was a nice forum, really respectful. And it's something that I realized in my role that I'm really aiming to do. And I've been kind of the past couple of months reaching out to different sectors, and it's part of the work that the coalition's been doing. Philipstown Communities That Care Coalition, the past 4 years, is really bringing these different sectors together. So Judge Linton and I had talked previous to my visit to Burlington about trying to bring these different first responders, the schools, even maybe getting someone from representatives from Hudson Valley Hospital and Putnam Hospital who are on the front end of this crisis, and trying to pull these key players together. The pharmacy, drug world, who's been so supportive in really so many of our initiatives, and really pulling these sectors together a little bit on maybe more on the town level at the judge's request. And Judge Linton is very she's very excited about this prospect, and so I just wanted to put it out there, and we're looking towards the end of June, maybe doing like a bagel breakfast, and I know, yes, we're offering food, but I know that people's schedules are difficult. There's never a time that's going to work for everyone, and so we're just trying to see. It doesn't have to be all the representatives from an organization or an entity, and it doesn't even have to be like the chief or the person in charge, but people on the front line who are dealing with this every day and just exchanging information. Because I don't know what goes on a first response call, but I want to learn, and so we can kind of hopefully close some of these gaps. We learn somehow through the pipe, we learn about fatal overdoses, but a lot of information is lost on those non-fatal overdoses. And I think, maybe, John, you could speak to this, but a lot of times those are not the first times that first responders have been to those homes. So we're missing out on being able to offer support and help in those situations, whether it's even knowing what kind of information, resources are being shared with family members, or if there's a way that we can partner and get some social services involved. There's really great examples in different communities of quick response teams that partner a social worker with an EMS worker and a police officer. Within 3 to 5 days, they go and visit the family again after an overdose. And I do see that as like something that this town may be able to do and get funding for. So I think like projects like that, even though you guys have taken this great, amazing first step in creating this position, but I think maybe the way forward may be through specific project grants, like something like that really bring these different sectors together, and really, help people in need and these families who are really struggling. So I just wanted to, and it's become more and more apparent to me how much this is really an opportunity more than anything for the community to come together. Like I have days when it feels overwhelming and just kind of like, this is like such a huge issue, but I really see it as an opportunity to bring the community together. So many people have stopped me on the street. What can I do? Shop owners, do you need space? What do you need? I can, let's meet for coffee. I'll join the coalition. And it's really, so I'm so thankful for this position because it's really put it in the public's eye in a way that wasn't happening for 4 years. The coalition is still doing such great, important work and has been, but because this position was created, it's really, people are reaching out to me all the time. And so I'm really grateful, and I hope to, keep pushing along with different opportunities like this.
Danielle, I reached out to the sheriff, and I know he had emailed you,
Yes.
and he was going to discuss with the law department on how much information
Great.
could come from EMS, because there's so much protected,
Yeah.
as, so
We're
it's.
trying to figure that all out. Yeah.
He said he was going to research it and reach out to you some
Great.
more and try to get some more information too. So.
Great. See, I'm annoying everyone. I'm just calling.
Hardly. I mean, we are really, really thankful to have you. So, I mean, I want to say that first and foremost. And thank you for the update. And I know that the board is very happy to hear that the program seems to be going well and people are reaching out and we're getting
Yeah.
more public interest and more public outreach. So that's super important also.
Great.
I know you're
Thank you.
putting in way more time, and you're completely dedicated to this, and we're really lucky for that. And I think it's amazing how you've processed this, and now we're at this point. It's sort of the way the town board came to appointing you. It's like, what do we do? Who is it going to be? And it was you, and now you're processing it. How does this look? And the priorities are coming out. We met a couple of days ago, and it was amazing to see Danielle in action and say what the priorities are now. Now we have to get all of those key first responders to the table, and I think it's like going to them and then getting everybody to the coalition table here in our town.
Right.
And that's the way this works. It's like looking into the faces of the people who are affected by it, and so great work, really. I know it's hard.
Yeah, and I just want to say, just because this is video for first responders, I have such respect for the people on the front lines doing this work every day. The more stories you hear, you just can't believe, these departments are equipped to deal with this every day. So it's just, it's really, I'm really grateful in that way as well. Yeah.
Danielle's not a first responder.
No, I'm not. I'm just very grateful for them and the work.
Do you have a list in your mind when people do approach you and say, "What can I do for you?" Do you have something that tangible or intangible?
It does, it depends. I'm already thinking, in terms of funding sources. I have people that I know, he'll be great to tap for funding sources and talk about grant development and research. People who have been involved in this community for years and even have a lot of experience with the rec department and kind of how do we look at that? I think I always encourage people to come to the coalition meetings because I think that's a great way to start. And I do think the coalition has a website, but I would love at some point to get that really updated and just more of a presence. So I think I'm always looking for like some web people too. So I do have. I mean, there's things that I think I'm getting there.
If you have something, you could do this.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
throw
And the
something
new,
at
the
them.
new bookstore in town approached me and said we would love to host if you need to host a meeting or a group here. So I met with them and they're great. So I think it's ripe for really some programming and different meetings in that way. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you so
very
much
much.
for all your
Thank
work.
you. For the coalition, philipstownctc.org. Thanks.
All right.
Just quick, at that CTC meeting that, Danielle reported on, Tish Barkavich from Putnam County was there just to let us know that we're in great need of foster parents on this side of the county. So I just, I really wanted to express that tonight. Maybe we can get her department to come to a meeting here to talk about that program. Right now, if you're interested in becoming a foster parent, just dial 211 and United Way can help you through that process. But on this side of the county, there seems to be a great need for foster parents.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Anything else from the audience? Approval of vouchers, general.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? I vote aye. Highway,
So moved.
second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye. Continental Village Park District,
So moved.
second. All in favor? I vote aye. Continental Village Water District,
So moved.
second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye. Motion to adjourn,
So moved.
second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we're meeting on the 20th then.
Meeting on the 20th.
Yep, 7 o'clock.